But right now, if indeed this show were being broadcast in our brothers and sisters to the north in Canada,
that's right.
We would have some serious problems.
We'd have serious problems.
And to illustrate that very dynamically and very directly and very graphically, we have someone who has been through many of these lawfare battles, who wears the scars of being a target of those who don't like what he says, who wears the scars of being a target of those who disagree with his viewpoint, and in fact, currently in this battle for free speech in the West, just lost once again. Please, ladies and gentlemen, give a rousing round of applause to Ezra Levant from our neighbors up north in Canada. Ezra, how you doing?
How you doing?
Well, I'm okay. I mean, they haven't literally gagged me, but we live in a country here in Canada that does not have your First Amendment. We don't have the same vigorous culture of freedom of speech and freedom of religion. So literally for 8 years now, I have been battling some form of censorship or another. Back in 2006, I published the Danish cartoons of the Muslim prophet Muhammad in a magazine. Well, that put me through a 900-day investigation and prosecution at the hands of a government human rights commission for, quote, promoting hatred or contempt against Islam, just for writing a news story with those images. And last week, I regret to say, I lost an $80,000 defamation case brought by the former president of, the youth president of the Canadian Islamic Congress. So I have spent the better part of 10 years fighting for free speech in a country that doesn't value it as much as America does. But it is politically difficult to speak against Islamic political correctness. People don't want to be called racist or Islamophobes. And I think in Canada, we have 1 million Muslim immigrants. Most of them are moderate, happy Canadians, but there is an activist side, and so they're starting to have real political clout. And so I'm worried that we may one day reach a political tipping point, as I feel they're about to do in places like the Netherlands or France, where almost to speak out against Sharia law, the creeping Sharia law, is political suicide. And I don't want to get to that point. I want to fight in the first ditch rather than the last ditch. I think people need to stand on guard in the United States. So raise the alarm, learn about it. I think that Canada may be 5 years down the road for you, and Britain may be 10 years down the road, and the Netherlands may be 15 years down the road. So if you want a glimpse of your future with creeping Sharia law and people afraid to speak out against radical Islam, look to Canada and gird yourself and realize your best defense is an adherence to your First Amendment, and your second best defense is to make sure that if people immigrate to the United States, they come to embrace American values, not to import Saudi values or Iranian values.
Ezra, you really don't have a First Amendment or any sort of protections of free speech in that manner?
Well, we do have in our Constitution a protection for freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, freedom of religion, but it is not given the same strength in the law as your First Amendment gives you. And listen, the law is just a piece of paper. It's the living culture every day that gives life to that law. So first of all, our freedom of expression is not protected as vigorously as yours is in our Constitution. And we don't have the same bipartisan love for free speech. Now, and you should be on guard too, because I say again, you have a strong First Amendment, but it is only as strong as the people willing to interpret it and defend it purely. Do not let it be eroded or whittled down or sanded down. It's up to you to keep the culture of that freedom alive. So between our weaker Constitution, our weaker culture, and judges who aren't passionate about it, we're less free than you are. And I love Canada very much. I want to do my best to improve it. But if you're not even allowed to speak truth to power, not even allowed to publish cartoons, I think that we have a lot more fighting to do up here.
Yeah, and these are serious issues, folks. Our big idea today is that free speech certainly is not free anymore in Europe. We recognize that with our good friend Geert Wilders over there. And you're hearing today firsthand from someone who's been through these battles for 10 years. You've been in how many lawsuits? And the target of these lawfare. Lawfare is fighting an ideological and a information war by using the legal process to basically bankrupt somebody, folks. How many of these battles have you been in over the past 10 years, Ezra?
I've literally lost count. I had 2 Human Rights Commission complaints against me. I have more than a half a dozen civil lawsuits. I'm also on TV, so there's our version of the FCC. We call it the CRTC up here. There are so many, and then I'm a lawyer, so the Law Society has its own, processes. It all told, between all these different ways that people can try and gag me, I've probably been hit 50 times. Now, almost all of them have been dismissed, but even if 1 in 10 gets through, like last week, I lost a lawsuit. Let me just give you a little detail about that.
Yeah, tell us about that.
The former youth president of the Canadian Islamic Congress sued me for a number of reasons, one of which was I called him anti-Semitic. Now,
you called him anti-Semitic? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
wow, that's a big, so what? But go ahead.
Well, the Canadian Islamic Congress, they publicly call for the legalization of terrorist groups, Hamas and Hezbollah. Their leader, their former leader, went on national TV and said any adult in Israel is fair game for a terrorist attack.
Anybody above 18 is a part of the Israeli popular army.
Everyone in Israel and anyone and everyone in Israel, irrespective of gender, over the age of 18 is a valid target.
Yes.
I mean, these people are extremists, in my view. This guy was the youth president who never said a word to contradict it. So based on this group's public statements and identity, and this guy being the youth president, I said he was anti-Semitic. The judge said that is not a fact. And so that's one of the various reasons I have to pay him $80,000 plus cost. So I have to appeal, because imagine if anyone who used the word anti-Semite as a description of a Muslim supremacist, or I'm not speaking about this guy, I'm speaking about in 100 other cases. Imagine if, as soon as you called someone an anti-Semite because they were part of an anti-Semitic organization, imagine if you would be sued, dragged through court for 5 years, and punished with a huge fine. It would chill the debate. Now, your First Amendment would likely mean that wouldn't happen. I've just lived through it. If people want to read, I recommend your viewers read the whole case. It's quite an eye-opener for Americans. You can find it on my website. Do you mind if I mention?
No, we want you to mention your website, and we want you to make an appeal for funds, to help raise money for your defense. We understand. We've been in a few of these battles. We understand it costs money. Ezra Levant, how could they reach you?
Well, I've set up a website called standwithezra.com, and Ezra is just my name, E-Z-R-A. So standwithezra.com, and you can read the entire court decision yourself. So maybe you agree that I did something wrong, given the cut of your jib, that you're Americans who love freedom and free speech and you're worried about Islamic extremism. I think you might side with me. Well, I just got hit with an $80,000 penalty, a liability, plus to appeal. My lawyers estimate it's going to cost me $30,000 to appeal, and I've got to pay that up front. So, I mean, listen, that's the price of free expression in a country without the First Amendment. But actually, the price is far worse, because I'm paying that price. But the vast majority of Canadians, they say, yeah, I don't even want to pay that price, so they self-censor. Not everyone is built for fighting. Tom, you're built for fighting. I know you are, and you enjoy the cut and thrust. Most people prefer a quiet life that is conflict averse. I'm like you a little bit, Tom. I like to fight and speak my mind. So I'm incurring these costs, not just of money, but time and stress. This is a danger if this spreads into the United States, and that's why you've got to be on guard for your Bill of Rights.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fight you're talking about, I was cursed at a young age of having, as a little kid, this sense of justice. Was way later in life when I realized God had formed me to fight these battles of truth, justice, and the Western way. And it's a curse in a sense, but along with that is a like. You're right. There is a like to the fight because you know you're fighting for the right thing. That's what's important. And for every viewer out there watching us today, or every listener, we are arguing and fighting so that you don't have to do this stuff. You can go about your life, but if you want to say something, the thought police, the word police aren't going to come and shut you down or sue you because your neighbor who may be a Muslim who doesn't like the fact that you said something about Islam. That's true. We're fighting for those issues, those reasons. Ezra's on the front lines. We want you to go to standwithezra.com, read the case, donate if you can, help him out.
If anyone wants to help me, I say again, you can read the whole court case. Maybe you agree with the judge. Maybe you think I'm wrong. But you can read it for yourself at my website, standwithezra.com. And if you want to help me with my legal bills, I'd be very grateful if you would.